good to see you again. It's Wednesday, 23rd of July, 2025. And we use a recent Doctor Who TV article to inspire a discussion on the missteps, the mishaps, and the biggest blunders in Doctor Who history, starting with Russell the T Davies, of course. What were the mammoth mistakes made according to Doctor Who TV columnist? And in all fairness, what other major muck-ups has Doctor Who faced over its 62 years? Great chat will soon commence. So welcome to the Talking Sense, Making Sense, Common Sense sphere. Now, I know there was news about the Emmy nomination for Outstanding Choreography, don't you know? Not of the script content or anything like that. Now, we have delayed talk of that for our news parody. I was hoping to get my slug report out today. And of course, very irreverent, very acerbic, and it's only 5 minutes long. That's always the plan. And of course, I can hide behind being him. So the plan is to actually put that out tomorrow. So look out for the slug report tomorrow. Slugging it out on the Emmy nomination for choreography. Here's a teaser. So that's it. The slug report, 5 minutes. Hopefully it lands well and it hits the right note and you have a laugh. That's the whole point. So that's the plan. But of course, tonight might be more. Depends what we talk about. And you're in charge of this. My panelists will lead me a little bit regarding their choices. So I think it's time I got them on. And of course, he's always a value for money. Here he is. Problem being, Lee. Hiya.
Hello.
Well, you only give me a very short list. Not.
Oh, was it? It was
No.
very truncated. You know, I didn't go minute by minute breakdown. It was all very, very abstract.
And I did get Lee to go beyond the new Who years as well, because I said it's dead easy for us to do what's fronted us in the last few years, but we want to be really balanced tonight and but cover the whole gamut of it. So everybody, please join in with that. And we've got James as well, Reese Roda. How good to see you, James.
Hey, how we doing? Everyone good?
We're good. And let me just get myself. There you go. And just to make it a nice quartet tonight, we have Jack, whose voice you might hear a little bit later as well. Hiya, Jack.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And so, well, we're going to be talking about, obviously, the Doctor Who TV article. But I've got my own little list here, everybody. And I will, through the night, I will pick on some of these, okay? So you can see a bit of a taster there of one or two of the darkest days of Doctor Who. The trouble is the list will go on and on and on and on, but here's just some of them, just to whet your appetite for certain moments later on. Of course, Doctor Who TV, the article listed these 5, and we will start and launch the show with these ones. But yeah, so do tell us in the thread which ones have triggered you the most and what bothers you the most, because that's where we want to really go. But before we start on RTD and what happened with this era of Doctor Who, I thought we'll introduce Jack properly, because he did this. I mean, he does a lot of them for me, and it's just for me fitting in the time to edit them. So basically, RTD and all the problems of Doctor Who now, some would argue, starts at the Fitzroy Tavern. So shall we go there? Okay, then.
I hear a new doctor you have, Russell. Or should I call you the Fitzroy Pumboy? Terence Dix. Bloody hell, are they still letting you in here? Surprised? Your conservatism blinds you, Terence. Now you'll experience the full power of the queer side, man. You will not stop me. Shooty Gatwa will become more popular than Tom Baker.
I just apologize to everyone.
So there you go. What an intro for you, Jack. There you go.
Just want to point out, no Welsh people were harmed in the making of this video.
Yeah, so there you go. That was all Jack's doing, Jack's voices, and you may hear another one tonight, everybody. But let's rock and roll with the major mishaps according to Doctor Who TV. So I'll start with the first one: Disney's involvement. I mean, I did have my suspicions early doors, but I mean, I'll start with you. Problem being, I mean, with my media insider source, they've actually poo-pooed a lot of this and said that Disney didn't get a chance to get any real input. This is not really down to them, it's down to other things. But anyway, Doctor Who TV seems to say Disney's involvement was one of the downfalls of Doctor Who.
Well, I said this from the word go, because I instantly knew what this meant. You know, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to look at Star Wars or Marvel and realize, not good. And I said right from the start, when this deal was announced, that this would be a death knell. And it happened to be the case, but not in the way that I thought it would be. I thought it would be Disney that would sink it, but it wasn't. It was Russell T Davies. And that's curious. It to me, it's like he was trying so hard to out Disney that even Disney thought this is too much. But I thought then, you know, that this was not going to be a good idea. Turned out Disney didn't think it was a good idea either. And I think from what I was told by my source was that this was not what Disney had envisioned. Disney bought something that they thought would be what they thought it would be, and it wasn't. It was something completely different. They were not hot on the casting either, as far as I was told. And they had someone else in mind. But it's like, I just thought my instinctive reaction to discovering Disney's place in all this was, well, they don't give millions and millions of dollars and not expect something in return, or to have some say over what happens. And I think as time goes on, we will find out exactly what. I hope that does come out, because I'd be very curious to see what input they did have and if any of it was actually adhered to. And I imagine it wasn't, because I can't imagine that this went down as, you know, the spinners like to spin it.
No. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I know sometimes you hear streamers saying, "Oh, I've got a source, I've got a source." As you know, I've just won the lottery recently by getting one. So we'll have to swap ideas on what we've been told. But my source, obviously, I can mention a few things tonight. Yeah, so we'll swap sources.
That sounds very dubious. You want to rephrase that, maybe?
Oh, I know. No, yeah, we're not in Canal Street.
Filthy hooah.
So James,
I'll swap you a Heinz for an HP.
So James, Disney. I mean, this is what I heard, and I know there was a leak, and my source said nearly everything in the leak was correct, and they were shocked that Disney hadn't had any real input, no creative control, no creative influence, and never got their mitts on the back catalogue. So basically, Disney was pretty happy with RTD as a choice. And then when they saw,
because they thought they were getting like Tenant era stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what they saw, they did not. I think what my source told me is they saw the first, like the church on Ruby Road, and they were just noping out at that point and went into a bit of a spiral. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I was told they were out.
I mean, I suspect that they knew all along that that Disney were not going to fund another series because they didn't like the first couple of episodes. Like, I think the reason they did the 2 series back to back was because they knew that they were posturing and they knew that it would be rejected. So they wanted to get it all made before the money was taken away. That's my suspicion.
I mean, I understand that it is possible that it can be in a writer's head. You know, you're aware of your audience, and 100 million's just been tanked in there by Disney, and RTD could have had an awareness of what he thinks they want. I mean, he could pick up the phone, and he's then written these scripts that he thinks adds to the magic and the fantasy and everything he thinks Disney would like. That's if he's really thinking of them. But I'm just playing devil's advocate. And that was our fear. What we got was what Disney didn't want. They just wanted the British brand. They weren't too bothered about what was actually technically in it. They just wanted to buy the blooming thing. When they saw the church on Ruby Road and not Star Beast and Space Babies, they were out. That was it. They just knew they were out.
That's what I heard. Same thing.
Yeah, I mean that fits in with what I think completely.
Which just shows you, it's very cutthroat, isn't it, in this media world? Basically, they could see what was happening. They said, "Oh no, that's it. Yeah, we'll just get through this and we'll be out. We'll stay civil with the BBC, but that's it." Jack, is there anything you want to say about good old Disney and Doctor Who in their partnership?
Well, I think, like Lee said, I knew there was going to be issues, but I did expect most of it to come from Disney. One thing I was really looking forward to, I mean, I kind of had my fingers crossed that they would do this, but sadly they didn't, was maybe the classic Doctor Who animations could have been of old style Disney quality.
Oh, that would have been nice.
You know, just not the modern 3D animation. I'm getting sick of that, but just when Disney's 2D animation was at its best. So kind of like the late 90s, 2000s, that really kind of, you know, it's got a bit of CGI in there, but it's still hand drawn. It's still, I know it would have cost an awful lot of money, probably more than they would be willing to invest. But I was just like, if something can come from Disney, at least the merchandise would be great. And that's something I truly expected. But it's like, no, everything's just gone in the opposite direction. It's like the merchandise is next to nothing. The animations are worse than they've ever been. And they've been bad ever since that Power of the Daleks, if we're being honest.
Well, it's worse than the Flash animation from, what was it? What was that one? The
Scream of the Shulker.
Scream of the Shulker.
Oh yeah, the Shulker, yeah.
I got like 10 minutes into that and I just couldn't. But
well, you got 10 minutes into it more than we did back in the day. I can tell you, it took forever to download.
Yeah, but it's just like, I just never expected that. Sorry, Brendan, that the damage would be of RTD himself. But obviously, you know, he's not a nice person. So yeah, we really shouldn't expect anything else. But whatever we discuss in this stream tonight, just know that nothing will be as bad as him.
Yeah, if I can just jump in on that one point, but before we move on, because Jack Rabbit was talking about merchandise, like the real problem there is that the Doctor, he changes his outfit every bleeding episode. He doesn't have a look, you know. He's not an iconic figure. How do you make a figure of something that is not an iconic figure?
To be honest, I couldn't give a rat's tail about Gatwa or anything. I was just hoping that maybe merchandise for the show, because if they had some of that Disney money, they could finally give us the classic Who characters that we never got. You know, as far as that was concerned, I actually think it's hilarious how little they've made of him, and I couldn't care less.
Well, they're throwing more money at his figures than anyone else's, haven't they?
No, but it's almost like, you know, everything else has had to be dialed down and suffer because, you know, we don't want to make the new stuff look bad. And I'm just like, just drop the new stuff and get the license for the Peter Cushing Dalek movies, please.
Yes,
Well, I
yes.
think this. I mean, when you talk, Jack, about the different silhouettes of the Shooty Doctor, and for whatever reason they did that. Of course, Disney's issue was tonal consistency, and of course, to me, that's the same blooming thing. They must have seen him in one outfit one week, one outfit another week, or changed twice in a show, and go, "Who is our? What is this brand?"
Can I just say
Sometimes,
also, I mean,
sometimes it felt like a fantasy. Sometimes it felt like a comedy. Sometimes it felt like a musical. I think that sort of thing would confuse anybody.
it's not just that, but they call us racist, but they've somehow managed to do every single stereotypical black fella as a look for Gatwa in 2 seasons.
Yeah,
It's
and Sonny Waffles, who comes on a regular panelist of ours, I was intrigued to ask his take on it, and Sonny's not happy with it. He says it's an awful stereotype of black people. He hates it. It would have been easier to go in a different direction and just played it just as in he's the 15th Doctor who happens to have a different skin color, and it's as easy as that. But
Well, I think they fetishized him to the point of absolute ludicrousness because I mean, even to the point of releasing a Ken doll version of him, and to me, that's what he represents. He's just a Ken doll. That he's stereotyped from that moment on, I think. And when you hear about the costume designer for his era, go, "Oh, I just want to." Play with his gender and all the.
But I need to say as well, I don't know, you guys probably already did a stream on this way back, but it was that interview he did where he said when he turned up for the Doctor, he actually dressed like the Doctor and he wanted to sound and be like the Doctor. But then Russell T Davies said, "No, I want you to be my gay bitch." And he's like, so I feel like
there's
really
no,
bad for him.
Well, there's no. I mean, and yeah, there's no evidence of that bit. But what we do know, Jack, is there was a quotation about gender pushing, societal pushing outfits, and he was surprised because he had his idea, which was much more conservative, wasn't it?
He wanted a sort of like a baker boy type look, was it? The flat cap.
But I mean, is that at least as much as I don't like Gatwa, as much as I find him irritating, I think he's obnoxious and entitled. At least he kind of went, you know what? I want to give that a go, which is more than Jodie Whittaker did. So I at least respect him a little bit more for wanting to attempt to be the Doctor. And I quite respect him as well for doing his research and, trying to choose an outfit that, I mean, this is all stuff he said in the interview. So I don't know,
Yeah.
But that gave me a bit of respect for him.
Now thread-wise, Squinty Mint, it makes an interesting point here because when Disney comes in, and it could be Amazon next, it could be whoever else, big global streamers, money comes in. And when money comes in, I think it then completely changes the whole formula and vibe and style of Doctor Who. And therefore you lose the whole heart of it. And as Squinty Mint says here, they could have made something truly cinematic with the budget and paced things properly, but it was just psychobabble exposition CGI. It's as if they saw the money, they saw the blank check from Disney, and they went for what in a way is the obvious kind of the superficial gloss. Let's get a big LED screen for Boom, so we can do lots of green screen stuff. Let's do lots of CGI omegas and stuff like that. And instead of telling good stories, having a really authentic set, maybe use that set over a couple of weeks so you use it properly, a classic Nerva Beacon style thing. Instead, we just splundered the money. And it was all gloss. Well, I mean, production values, it was good. Gloss over no substance.
It was set piece after set piece after set piece, whizzing around for. I mean, at least, we got to see more than one polystyrene wall or whatever, that we're more than happy with, quite honestly. But it's still set predominantly on Earth, which is just, can we stop? And yes, there was a lot of CGI. There were a lot of sets built for use for one episode, or like that ivory tower thing or whatever it was for the Rani for over 2 episodes. Let's say, wow, that's a lot of money. And it does seem to me that it's all about bombastic. Everything about this Doctor in this era is about being bombastic, being loud, being proud. And flash and color and all this kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a story.
Yeah, no integrity to any of it.
But there's
it's all show.
There's no stories left, James. That's the problem. He doesn't have any new ideas. Now, John Yulden, very nice of you to do this. Very generous. Are they going to release a limited edition I Have Bad Knees Shooty Barbie doll? Great show, guys. Like and subscribe. Yeah, knees that can't bend.
With a knee brace. Yeah.
Gotta love John.
his
Gotta
kilt.
love John.
But thanks for that. And for that, you'll get our new segment, our new Who Pet. Because, you know, I'm trying to kill them in many different ways. And I've tried again when I was in New York. Here we go. I try. You just got to try and kill them. They're useless mischiefs. So thanks for that, John. And after this one, I'm going to go to the panel because they've got their lists, and I'll go to the thread as well. So we'll spice it up. So there were 5 listed from the Doctor Who TV, and the second one was a hastily constructed Whoniverse. We haven't seen this new Whoniverse, let's be honest. We keep seeing that strip of music, which feels very Americanized anyway. The Whoniverse, it hasn't started yet. We've got a silly idea for some CBeebies animation, and we've got this long-trailed, long-mentioned, you know, the war between the land and the sea, which has sadly waited so long that because the show has tanked, it's hauled below the waterline, surely. And of course, and my last word on this is, he had everything in the wrong order. He didn't get his ducks in a row. He hasn't really nailed the main and re-established the main program. Therefore, the spin-off is just froth, nonsense, debris. Who cares?
I mean, I do want to see, like, at least the first couple of episodes to see what they're trying to do with it. But I don't imagine anyone who doesn't, like, you know, cover Doctor Who on the internet is going to be remotely interested. Because it's been too long and there isn't enough basic public interest because, as Brendan just said, the show tanked.
Have you noticed that the trailer that they're putting out there seems to be almost, apart from the references to Unit and the insufferable characters therein, it seems to be very unrelated. The tonally, visually, it seems very distant from Doctor Who. It doesn't look like it's part of the same universe. It looks very distinctly different. That might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing because people might just tune in to watch, oh, well, who's this fish chick, you know, and what's that about? But then, you know, if they catch wind that it's got, you know, bland as hell Kate Stewart, I just don't know if people will sit through that, quite honestly. That woman can send me to sleep in a heartbeat.
Well, for me, it's like when I look at this picture, I sit there and I go, right, what do we have here? So we've got a fella who runs a vegan cafe. We've got George from Being Human. We've got that teacher that pretends she's all happy, but actually she's mean when the camera's off. We've got a car salesman. We've got a woman who I swear to God has walked. And then we have Kate Blanders, all hell, did you know my dad was in the show back in the day, Stuart?
You know what it looks like to me? It looks like the BBC soap opera in the daytime. What's it? Doctors.
Yeah, it looks like a soap opera.
They look like they're in an NHS waiting room.
A trendy one at that, you know, somewhere in, you know, Haringey or something.
Yeah. Let's do up all the walls, but let's not like get more actual doctors and get people appointments.
And this is the other thing. We've had
every
finale has had to be in the unit set because they've built the unit set, which is make it. It might be expensive, but it looks tired. You know, the giggle, you know, the Empire of Death, and then of course the reality war. And you think, for God's sake! And then we've got a 5-part spin-off where we're going to use the same blooming set again. And I actually think this is tired. This is tired. I agree with what you're saying. It does actually look very like Doctors and Taser Lady. I mean, you know, yeah, she's in that wheelchair, but I tell you what, even in that show when she was in, was it Lucky Day? She was Taser Lady, and she was proud of tasering that lad at the end. It was classic, you know, say one thing, do another. But yes, we haven't even seen this yet. I don't know if I do want to see it. I thought the trailer felt a bit more like it was taking itself seriously, which the Doctor Who program had seemingly couldn't. The trouble is, Sea Devils was my starting point with Doctor Who, and I see this picture and I'm going, don't you dare, don't you dare. I was at Neil Cole's exhibition, as you know, at the weekend in Hexham, and Robert Alsop, who designed the Legend of the Sea Devils costume, and talking to him about the effort and the thought and the netting, he was trying to echo the original, but of course he is swayed by the designer who says no, it's got to look like that and it's got to look like that, and he tried his best to get
that looks like a, what are they called, the with the things on Star Trek, the blue people on Star Trek.
Smurf.
Yeah, Smurfs, that's the one.
I mean,
why would I want to watch this when I've watched Avatar? Already. It's just another. It's just been done before.
So I mean, it's daft, isn't it? Hastily constructed Whoniverse as a criticism. It hasn't even started yet. I think that's tanked. So useless idea there. Okay then, eeny meeny miny mo. Let's start with James then. James, one of your list. Okay, so I'll get this sorted out because obviously I was set up for the 3. There you go. Right.
Can I just point out before you do that their list on Doctor Who TV, though very good, I do agree. But the one glaring issue that was not mentioned was it was too Q-word. And that's obvious.
Obvious. Well, they're trying to be mainstream, which is why they won't say that.
They won't say it. And it's like, well, you need to say it because that is the core issue.
I suppose me and you, Lee, know that we've said it, I think, hundreds of times that it went too far.
Yeah.
And it in a way, having said it hundreds of times, I start to think, yeah, that's almost a given now. It's like, yeah. But yeah,
I just don't like people skirting around the issue when it's so glaringly obvious.
Well, there's no, I know, but we're also, we're entertaining as well, aren't we? Which is like, I'm aware that everybody's watching us going, well, on your show and with Noel and on here, we know what you think about that and that. So, I'm not skating around it. It's just, it's like, yes, what he wears and what he does and babes and rogue and I know. So James, on this list here, out of your list of, looking at the whole of Doctor Who, which one do you want to talk about first and just explain to the audience, so to speak?
Let's go with season 8. Mastering every Pertwee story. I loved John Pertwee as the Doctor. Like I'm still like, going through the early stuff, but Pertwee is one of the Doctors that I have seen every single episode of, and he is one of my favorite Doctors, classic or modern. I love him to bits, and I love Delgado's Master as well. But you can have too much of a good thing. It was almost like repeating the same story episode after episode, story after story, and it really kind of got a bit tiresome.
Now, this is an interesting one. This is why, diverse opinions, different ages and all the rest of it. I mean,
heresy.
I know. I mean,
Lee, I love all the stories individually, but it's the fact that they were, if they were like, if it was like he was in half of one season and half of the next season, and if they were spaced out a bit,
the thing is,
no one would have cared. It would have been fantastic because best master, definitely best master, fight me, and one of the best Doctors.
I think I know. I'm trying to think because when I heard your point here, I thought, gosh, I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, at the time, I was too young. I never saw it in sequence at the time. So it's interesting what anybody who did watch it then thought, going, oh, it's the Master again. Oh, it's the Master. We got a bit of that with Anthony Ainley, I have to say, with J&T. Once he got him back in Keep of Track, and we had Legopolis, Castrovalva, Time Flight, you started to think, oh, right, here we go again. The issue here, though, I suppose, James, is they were stuck on Earth. And, of course, you've just invented this brilliant enemy, and maybe it's great fun to have him appearing in often lots of different guises. It gets the disguise thing going, doesn't it?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's particularly Delgado's master, is the best Doctor Who villain. Full
Absolutely.
stop.
Mm.
But you know, you can have too much of a good thing.
Well, that's very true on everything. What do you think, Lee? I mean, I know we were joking heresy.
Yeah.
When you do, when you get the box set for that season, I have to say, I suppose you would say, "Oh yeah, it's the Master again. It's the Master again."
Yeah, of course. I mean, they were clearly doing a Moriarty to his Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah.
but even Sherlock Holmes, you know, had a break from Moriarty now and again. So
Yeah,
I mean, I do absolutely agree.
I mean, that was the idea. He was
Yeah.
supposed to be the Moriarty to Doctor 3 as Holmes. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So,
But
Tom,
I think
sorry.
that I yes, at the time I think it would have been eye roll, but thank God that we have all those episodes with him now, because obviously when he passed in that shocking incident, that yeah, at least we have those. And I mean, at the time I can absolutely agree, and of course if you're watching it episodically on a marathon, you know, you're doing story after story and you're watching the season all the way through sort of within a few weeks, it's obviously going to be like, oh god, here we go again. But you know, at the time maybe it was, you know, on a weekly episode it wouldn't quite be as noticeable now then as it is now. I mean,
So, Tomboy Chick here, I felt Anthony Ainley was more repetitive with the ridiculous disguises. Many of them beyond bad. I mean, the Time Flight one, I don't think would be. Everyone goes on about Talons of Wen Chian. I think the blooming car lead in blooming Time Flight's more problematic. Craig Dunlop, I completely agree with Reese Roder. Pertwee's second season was just non-stop with the Master, and as a 10-year-old at the time, here we go, I got bored with it really quickly. He was the best Master, though. So yes, we can agree on that.
yeah.
We can also agree. So that's good to know, Quig, because I was in the end, I was thinking, yeah, if you have the box set and all the rest of it, we only get a vibe of that now. But living through it at the time, I get what you're saying. Okay, Lee, you're the next cab on the rank. Let me just kind of sort this out again so it looks neater. So here's Lee's list. Now, of course, Lee, I was not guiding, but saying, you know, we'll go wider as well. We're certainly back to RTD soon. Don't you worry, everybody. But in your wider list, which one would you like to hit first, Lee?
season 18. I'm a big Tom fan. He's my favorite Doctor. But I think there was a lesson from history there in terms of coming back to the role of producer or showrunner, if you want to call it the modern term. But I think when Barry Letts came back for JNT to shadow him, I think Barry Letts probably shouldn't have done that and come back. I think it should have been like a Philip Hinchcliffe thing. You let the young guy come in and do his own thing. I mean, JNT had been on the floor of the studio for a number of years, so he should have really known his situation, known the game by that point. I'm not knocking the entirety of season 18, but it's such a massive tonal shift from the Williams era and from the Hinchcliffe era. Now, it's good to shake it up a bit, but I think to end Tom's run on quite a down note, the whole season was about entropy and death, and it's rather gloomy, and I think he deserved a bit of a better send-off than that. So whilst I think there were great ideas in season 18, and some episodes I like that other people don't like, I still think it was bit of a bad idea for Barry Letts to kind of come back in that role at that time. And I think that serves as a warning for RTD.
And the truth is, people don't like, we don't like the boss returning and that. And when you've got Jonathan Turner gets the job, the last thing you want is somebody breathing down your neck. I mean, it's interesting because if I had John Daly on, John Daly, season 18 is his favourite, and he will say every time he comes on. And a lot of people in the thread, I'm sure, will say so. But I get what you're saying. It's interesting because one of your other points that we'll look at later is the Graham Williams era, where me and you really do agree, and we'll save that one for a little bit later. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know, it never gelled with me. There was something about season 18. I could see stylistically what they were doing, and it did seem a little bit more accomplished and together. But there was just something that was colder. And I know what you mean about the entropy theme. I also, as devil's advocate, think maybe that was seen as a great idea, that this is the end of our longest running Doctor. Let's make a big thing of it by actually doing it. But in the end, in totality, I know what you mean. It just felt a bit cold and clinical and dour.
Yeah, I think just the tonal shift of it was quite dour.
Yeah. There were things I didn't like. I mean, I also do not like the costume. I'm sorry, the question marks, and we were this was the beginning of the commercialization of Doctor Who in this way. This is the beginning of losing Doctor Who, I would personally argue. Whatever touches everybody likes about season 18, and I agree with a lot of them, I think this is the start of the problems, the start of just making it gimmicky and starting to cheapen it. So it was a shame, because J&T was making it look production-wise better.
Oh, it looked fantastic, yeah, and it almost looked like they'd actually put money in,
Yeah,
or spent it, but wisely. I think J&T was handicapped through obviously inflation happening and the budget remaining the same and unchanged. And I think he was quite clever with money, in getting what he wanted in the way. I know he gets a lot of hate, but unjustifiably, I think, in some cases. If you look at season 18, the sets and all those sort of costumes and things that did actually seem to be a step up. But I think, yeah, it's where all the sort of corporatization, the branding really started to sort of kick in. But it seems kind of a strange time to do it at the end of the longest serving, most popular Doctor, to then do it at his sort of funereal season, really.
What I'll do is I'll bring Jack in here now. Jack, this is the list that AI and a lot of things got together, because I thought let's do a different way as well. So you can see here, I'll just rattle through them, and if you want to pick one that you think, no, that gets me going as well. So Jack: Timeless Child, The Flux, Fear Her, The Trial of a Time Lord being too long, The Twin Dilemmas, The Violence with Perry, Dominator's been dull as Ditchwater, The Curse of the Black Spots, Pirate Misfire, Love and Monsters, Misjudged Tone, The Wedding of River Songs, Cop Out, or The Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS as Missed Opportunity. Any of them catch your eye, Jack?
Sorry, Brendan, I just had to take a phone call real quick. Pretty much all of them. Although for me, it might just be because I grew up with it, which I'm sure I'll get punished for, because I'm Gen Z, everyone hates us. But I don't actually think Fear Her is as bad as some people make it out to be. It's not Doctor Who by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not particularly awful. In fact, it actually scared me as a kid, to be honest.
Did it?
Yeah. The dad in the wardrobe gave me nightmares for bloody days.
I didn't think it was particularly bad, to be honest.
I thought the Doctor was funny.
Okay.
I like the humor, especially when he's got the marmalade jar. I thought it was very soap opera. In fact, to be honest, if you've watched the Sarah Jane Adventures, it actually does feel like an episode of that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not particularly offensive to me. I just think it's. I used to enjoy it as a kid.
You see, because obviously we've called this the biggest blunders and misdirections and missteps in Doctor Who, and some of them are obviously bigger than others. This to me, and I'll see what Lee and James think. This to me was just drab. It was too suburban. It was naff. It just didn't inspire. The whole Olympics crap I couldn't stand.
I agree with that.
I will say on recent watchings, I'm like, yeah, I can see what people are talking about. But it's like, I suppose you can't help what you grow up with. But my God, you do get punished for it.
No, I no, it is your opinion, and that's why it is very interesting. So, Lee, on that list there, which isn't your list, but I'm sure there's some coincide. Is there anything there you would say, right, let's have it out now?
Well, I mean, the one glaring one is the Timeless Child, but I think people are so bloody sick and tired of talking about it. I mean, that's the ultimate, I mean, Doctor Who's jumped the shark so many bloody times, you might as well just build a bridge over it.
So,
But,
Lee,
yeah.
Lee, if I throw this at you then in this way, let's deal with Timeless Child, because most of our audience clearly would want us to, even though they've heard our versions before. But let's do it slightly differently. So the Timeless Child, everybody knows our opinions on this. Right, what is your opinion now? If there was a new production team in 3 or 4 years, let's hope, who are given a chance to resurrect Doctor Who in a different way. Now, there's different schools of thought, Lee. A lot of Doctor Who fans are saying this has to be retconned, this has to be dealt with. But there's other Doctor Who fans, and I'm actually growing to be one of them, who says just bloody ignore it, never mention it again, and let it go away. But don't deal with it. Don't let a future series get bogged down in all this.
Yeah, I see where they're coming from, and it is difficult because obviously none of us asked for this, and we've been lumbered with it. And when you're lumbered with something, the first thing you're going to do is, what the hell do I do with this? And it's so bamboozling as to why. I mean, well, we know why they did it, but why did you follow through with such a divisive, pretty nasty retcon to the Doctor's history? And I just think, well, you can ignore it, like the half-human thing that's been pretty ignored. But then part of me screaming, well, why the bloody hell should we ignore it? They didn't take into consideration or account, the 50 plus years of people's hard work and effort to build this character up from scratch from 1963 onwards, and overrode all of that without a second thought. They had the arrogance, the sheer effing hubris, to do that. And I would have absolutely no qualms or problems whatsoever if someone came along and said, right, we are going to address this, but we're going to absolutely deal with it in one sentence, and that's it. It's finished. It's answered. It's nonsense. It's rubbish. It's all gone. Boof. And then see how they like it. Because I can assure you, many people, if they were still alive today, who brought Doctor Who to our screens from the 1960s, Verity Lambert, people like her, Barry Letts, Terence Dix, they would have balked at this. Quite rightly too.
If it had been a good story, it had half a chance. Deadly Assassin changed an awful lot of Doctor Who folk, lore, but it was a hell of a classic. However, this was so poorly executed. And actually, look, I'm not a writer, but why Chris Chibnall must have had so much belief in himself to think, I am going to change the Cybermen, I'm going to change Gallifrey, I'm going to change the Doctor Who's origin, I'm going to change so many things in one episode. I mean, please, come on, Shakespeare might want to do a sequel, for God's sake. It was ridiculous. So Squinty Mint, The Trial of a Time Lord, for me, is the least forgivable classic series mistake. They had fewer episodes and more time to get that season right. Yeah, and I won't say a word because
the death of Robert Holmes certainly scotched that.
Didn't help, did it?
Eric Saywood, I'm sure Jack
there was. I mean, do you trust a Gen Z with information? There was a lot going on behind the scenes that so many Doctor Who fans, older ones, are still ignorant of to this day. So when you want to get onto that, Brendan, we can go on to it.
Certainly, we shall do. Tom by Chick, some people would say the scariest thing about Fear Her was a particularly, well, yes, I know, the unmentionable, the edited out presenter. But that's the other thing. And actually, because we've mentioned that, I'm going to jump to one of yours, James, straight away, because you made a reference to, let me just get it back up here, pop culture references that Rtd'S fixated on. And of course, you could argue having that news presenter in, but then other stuff like Big Brother, having Davina
Yeah.
McCall in, the android. You're thinking this is a misstep.
Misstep. Pure unadulterated cringe.
I thought
I mean, it's
was
supposed to be about time travel. So, like, if you're going to do pop culture references, you're tying the entire season to a specific era. Like, nobody's going to. I mean, if they put that episode out now, nobody would know who the hell and Anne
And Robinson.
Robinson. What? See what I mean?
Yeah. But James, I will say this, James. I totally get what you're saying, and I think a lot of pop culture references that are naff about celebrity culture would be lost completely within a year or two because celebrity culture is part. But the other thing I would say to you all is, but the android thing, as in the example on the screen, I think it works in the narrative pretty well.
It would do if we could assume that in the far-flung future there's going to be some kind of resurgence into 2020 early 21st century pop culture, where you've got Weakest Link and Trini and Susanna and all that, and Big Brother is still going on, which it probably will be.
The
But
Trini and Susanna bit was
it's so
that was
dated
the
already.
worst because Captain Jack was. I mean, we're talking about the narrative. That's why he was hiding his pistol up his narrative.
Yeah.
In his black
The
hole.
thing is, if they were going to do pop culture, you could be grateful that we did Trini and Susanna, Big Brother and the Weakest Link, because to be quite honest, if RTD was being truthful to what's going on British TV at the moment, we'd have had Doctor Who landing in Naked Attraction or Love Island.
No, we would have had Doctor Who landing in Doctor Who, because it's so meta and crazy now, or a musical or some bullshit.
Yeah. But can you imagine Doctor Who landing? I mean, Big Brother, we got away with it. Chris Eccleston kept his clothes on. But can you imagine in Love Island, who were you copping off with next? I mean, it would have changed the show completely.
Yeah, it would have been Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, or Drag Race, whatever the hell it is. That it'd be something insufferable like that, or Queer as Folk or something. It would be that self-referential. I wouldn't put it past him.
Can you imagine the Doctor if he was in the blue booth of the 6 booths in Naked Attraction, and as the thing comes up, the android type presenter is about to blast him if he's got a small todger? Can you just imagine it? I mean,
is that your Sonic, or are you just pleased to see me?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Davros looks better. The version with legs, apparently. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting one, James, because we just kind of touched on it, and Tomboy Chick had mentioned it. So let's get back to the RTD misfires. Okay, let's be fair here on where we all stand. The other criticism from Doctor Who TV was the over-reliance on nostalgia, and it done poorly. Now, this is a really big one, isn't it? This really is, I think, has peed off so many people. You've got Sutek, you had Omega, you've got the Rani, you bring back Bonnie Lanford to do nothing and just spin her with the Toymaker. The Toymaker was different. He couldn't be Celestial anymore. And we could just go on. I really found what he did for reasons of nostalgia was vandalism, was cultural vandalism, stuff saying cultural appropriation. What he did with what was ours was a disgrace. It was an ambush, it was a lynching.
It was baiting. This will get the old fans back in, the ones complaining. Oh, look, look, here's a little tidbit for you, here's a little bone. And really all you got was some absolutely nothing that looked anything like what we'd grown up with. So all that talk of nostalgia, well, it's only nostalgia in name, but in reality you've presented something that looks nothing like what we remember, so you're not providing nostalgia. Now, Doctor Who, whether you like it or not, is nostalgia. The reason it's back is because of nostalgia, and now the same people who brought it back are now telling us, oh, you grumpy fans, it's not made for you, you just like nostalgia, which is the enemy. Hold on a minute. You made your career out of nostalgia, and yet you're telling us we can't have what we tuned in for. Get out, frankly. Am I
Now-
clear? Good.
Well, it's all right because we're discussing this. And I'll go along the panel and I'll ask the thread as well. Now, I missed out even Susan. There is so much, and we know how this season finale was changed because Shooty had to leave quickly because he'd paid himself out of the contract. So while he gets what he wants to not damage his career, the great moment for Carol Ann Ford to come back after all these years was wrecked. And I think this is the moment when you toyed with nostalgia, but you could tell, and I totally agree with Lee, because RTD was toying with us, he could edit her onto the cutting room floor as soon as Shooty was flying.
Yeah, well, he just feathering his own nest. He didn't give a well, he didn't care about the story he was trying to tell. He just wanted to make himself look good. Like it's not about the narrative anymore. It's about posturing. It's about look, I can do this, I did that. It's the same, like it's like failing forward in the corporate world. Like you say, like yeah, I can do this project, and then you fail at the project, but you blame your partners for the failure and you get the promotion, and then you fail at the next project and blame your partners and get the promotion. That's what ITD is doing.
But this is this example of Carol Ann Ford is the worst example going. Never mind Omega and all them, because it was to please the past, the former fans and all the rest of them, the older fans. But it was clearly narratively meaningless. And this is the point. He does stuff like Easter eggs just to throw it in there, to put a bit of froth on it. And as soon as suddenly, screeching of brakes, Shooty said, I'm out of this. Suddenly he goes, oh my God, everything that where she's in, I've been building for 2 seasons for this. Cutting room floor. There you go. There was no point to having her there. And I think that's the big shock. It just showed you how meaningless all this was. Jack, did you get triggered by the Omega, the Rani, all this nostalgia stuff? No, okay.
Apparently not.
Yep, we'll move on then. So let's have a look. The unsubtle storytelling. That was a classic one, James, wasn't it? And this is the one that Dead Ringers, as you know, really went to town on. Because, it, as they said, it just died.
That was amazing.
But there was
I mean, it was more entertaining than the show itself by quite some distance.
So yeah, this was the moment when we're talking about unsubtle storytelling. And just to remind everybody, Dead Ringers obviously did their script on it, which we've all streamed on. And of course, another BBC show with Naga Manchetti mentioned this text. I'm a guy who considers himself of the left. Most of my friends are women, some are trans, some are gay, but even I cringe watching an episode of Doctor Who. It's no longer a family show about space and time travel. It's literally a bunch of memes telling us that white straight men are the source of all evil in the universe. It's aimed at 12-year-old girls, but watched by a declining number of people over 40. If Doctor Who is dying, it's because the BBC's killed it. Yes, there were always stories that had messages or storylines about the environment or the misuse of power and intolerance, but now it has just become an intolerant programme condemning most of its viewers simply for existing. God, it sounds like Keir Starmer. BBC presenter. I can see why Andy is saying what he's saying. BBC presenter, the other one says, sometimes I do feel like you are being lectured to. And this seems to be the vibe of the country. Never mind RTD. But as I remind everybody, just as you all come in, Dead Ringers nailed it, and so did Naga Manchetti. People are now almost outing the fact that RTD has wrecked it.
I think Andy is spot on. I think it's a very, very concise, very literate way of putting it, and I think he's absolutely nailed it there. And I think it is a microcosm of the world, or particularly Britain, that we're living in now. Everything is so I can explain it. It's such projection. everything that the radical far left accuses absolutely everyone of, intolerance, this, that, and the other, ismphobe, etc., is just an extension of their own angst and their own hatreds. And I think they project it onto other people because it's easier than looking at what they're doing. And I can transpose that onto people like Russell T Davies, onto Mark Gatiss, and so on and so forth. I think they are just as guilty of it. I think they're very busy having a go at the audience that they, it's not made for you, or, you're not tolerant, therefore you're not welcome, and all this kind of nonsense. Well, that's intolerant in and of itself. You're not reflecting the nation or the will of the nation. You're not listening to certain fans and only listening to certain other fans. And that's been very clear. We can see that from the Chibnall era when the whole Thasmin thing happened. The shippers came into the fandom, dominated the fandom. They squatted in the middle of it like a fat spider in the middle of the web and dictated to the showrunner what they wanted, and they got it. And when the show tanked, who are they looking to blame? Not them for presenting a lousy concept that they ran with and will not take responsibility for, but every one of us who said, no, I'm not watching that. That's not Doctor Who. You're the evil bigots. You need to leave the fandom. That's not how it works for a successful show.
And this is when, and I mean, I joked about Keir Starmer, but you know why I'm saying that, because Keir Starmer has said certain things recently to his own constituents, let's be honest, the British public. And then you've got people like Shooty will say, go and touch grass. Or you've got Jodie Whittaker will say, white male gaze. And you just think, gosh, isn't it shocking how you are just happily saying, go away, customers, bye-bye, go away, viewers, go away, audience.
Well, why is the show tanking? But it's not tanking because it's the best it's ever been editorial, but it's not tanking, but it is tanking, but it's not. Oh, well, it's coming back. We really wanted to come back. No announcements yet, but yeah, it's going to come back. It's always going to come back, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, who knows? Maybe it will come back. Well, maybe it'll come back with the next generation. Oh, well, it's really good. Everything's great. I see that, and I just go, what are you doing? No one's fooled by this, by the way.
It's I used to call it the madness of RTD, and Jack helped us out with this one.
We've had long conversations about bringing the Daleks back because they're such amazing, iconic villains. But you know something? Time, society, culture's taste has moved on, thank God. And there's a problem with the Daleks of old, in a sense that they are wheelchair users, all of them, the whole lot of them, look, they've got wheels down there, I can see them, who are evil. And I have problems with that. And lots of us on the production team that I hired only last week had problems with that. This problem of associating disability with Pepper Potts. My mom got offended because she said, oh, look, you keep pretending our salt and pepper shake is the Daleks. I was like, I'm not having that. And so, yes, I thought, you know what? Change is happening. And when change happens, Doctor Who has to change along with it. I thought it was absolutely vital to do this. And I'm so proud of the fact that I have. I deserve an award. Honestly, no one's taking this from me.
And so you have an actual human woman in a wheelchair shooting lasers out of her wheelchair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's an insufferable cow that no one likes. Yeah. Well done on your representation there, making disabled people look like smug, insufferable people. That's really not good, Russell. Sorry, but that's just the truth.
Yeah. By the way, that was a bloody brilliant clip. I loved it.
Oh, he's good. Well, Jack's good. I mean, he's done loads, and we have plans to do more. It's just life gets in the way half the time. But I always want to do justice to them. He does obviously the voices and the script and all the rest of it. And then I think I know, but I need to make it look or feel good as possible. So yeah, I mean, he's good. He's gifted, and it's great to have him on because it brings that kind of lightness to it as well, of course. Now, the last one on the Doctor Who TV front, so we've had unsubtle storytelling, We've had, you know, the nonsense about the Whoniverse, etc., and nostalgia being poorly executed. But what about this one? We have touched on it, but I can't believe. I mean, if you're going to be a Doctor Who showrunner, this is your number 1, 2, 3, 4 priority, which is you get the right actor, you get the right characterization, you spend a lot of time honing it, getting it right. I mean, you can get opinion poll groups, you can survey people, you can really sort this out before you put them to screen. But no, I know what I'm doing, I know what I want, and we're going to do it. Of course, we had rumours that there'd been another actor who had to be paid out, who would have looked and been very different, I dare say. Although I'm in a way, I'm glad he got out, because he would have got Space Babies, he would have still got Devil's Cord, he would have still got all those horrible scripts. But in the end, this Doctor, ill-served representation, just like the Jodie Whittaker Doctor was ill-served female representation. We just seem to be doing terrible representation, terrible the caricatures. They don't actually have any essence. You know, everybody says the Jodie Whittaker Doctor with Graham, when he said he wondered if he had cancer and she didn't really feel. So that you have that moment. And then with Shooty, he just, I mean, God, I was saying to everybody yesterday, I watched the Devil's Cord again, because obviously I was clipping it for my show tomorrow with the Slug Report. And I'd missed that one, that he'd actually cried when he was put in the drum. He cried again. I mean, they surely sit down, and my media source was saying that surely a good production team, and if he had been a producer, he'd have said, right, directors, I want you in. I can't tell directors what to do, but I can have a meeting with all the directors and say, this is how I want us to deal with this Doctor, and I really want the tone to be like this. A tonal meeting, of course. And that should have had that leadership to it. Never mind all these articles saying, RTD saying, oh, I saw the first rushes and then I changed my script and then I adapted and let him have free reign and he's doing a different version of Doctor Who for the dark times. That sounds, RTD, like you've done absolutely bottle of planning.
It does. And not only that, you know, everything has to go through him. And he's green lit some really terrible decisions that are very divisive, very hateful, and very politically motivated, in a very skewed and very intolerant and very extreme way, I would say. You know, he brought on some writers in this second season that were all on the same page, no diversity of thought there at all. He allowed for scenes to happen where you have Gatwa pretending to be the Doctor, telling you know, this guy that he's going to die alone, and he's beyond reproach. Yet, you know, you have the African story where this guy who's going to end the entire universe, and he gets to go and live a happy life as a barber, because he's, you know, and it's so clear cut. And then also you have the tortures. I thought it couldn't get worse than the Jodie Whittaker cancer scene. I really didn't think it could until I saw that clip of Gatwa torturing this conveniently horned white man. And if anyone knows about anti-Semitic stereotypes, you know, horned people is used as a stereotype for Jews. And we know what Gatwa and all that lot's views are on that. So it just seemed very on the nose. And Doctor Who shouldn't be used for divisive politics like that. Keep it out. It's supposed to be an entertainment show first and foremost. Yes, you can have politics in the show, but like Andy in that letter to the BBC, or the email to the BBC said, you know, you can have things about, you know, the environment and, you know, and all these kind of things, but it has to have a nuance. It has to have. It shouldn't be the bread and butter of it. It should be every single story. And it becomes so preachy, and people are tired of being beaten over the head when they just want to be entertained and be whisked off to a whole new world, not a brave new world, you know, a brave 1984. You know, we want to be taken away to another planet, an adventure through time and space.
You see, this is what I mean, and you know, I don't know what you think, James, but when I've put the Vanity Fair article up because this was in the middle of the season 1, season 2 kind of era, and RTD should have control over what Shruti says as the Doctor during that period. We know that from all the other Doctors. But he went into all this diva outfits, catwalks, runways, I'm a shape-shifting show-off. And the outrageous outfits, which of course were to show off his physique and whether he's good looking and all that jazz. But the point is, at the moment, he's supposed to be projecting the Doctor. He's supposed to be advertising the Doctor Who brand. And to me, every time he wore an outlandish outfits like, I mean, these are even worse than what were in Doctor Who. It just cheapens what they were trying to do. And I again, I put it down to RTD. You had to have more control. You might have liked all this, and you might think Canal Street should be full of all this, but I'm sorry, RTD, you've actually been pretty neglectful of looking after the Doctor Who brand. What do you reckon, James?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not the Doctor. I mean, really, anything Shooty's done apart from that long tan leather coat, he's never looked like the Doctor. But yeah, I mean, you hear stories about, say, Tom Baker like suddenly putting out his cigarette and throwing it away so nobody could see it because he saw that the kids were coming, and he needed to be the Doctor. Like, yeah. Doctor Who needs someone who cares about the role that much. Like, I mean, like Matt Smith wasn't a fan, but he obsessively researched it before he came on, and he did an amazing job. Yeah,
But Gatwa is, you know, caught smoking, you know, and probably smoking something that probably should be smoking, and swearing, and pictures of him grabbing his crotch.
Yeah, exactly. It's
and
not
all that.
the Doctor.
You're supposed to be a role model for kids. You know, this is not. I don't care what you identify as in your personal life or whatever. Do what you like. But when you're playing the Doctor in Doctor Who, you have a responsibility.
Yeah,
and I think it should be in the contract.
Exactly.
That, you know,
what goes on behind closed doors goes on behind closed doors. But if you are portraying the Doctor, and let's remember this is a BBC show, which is supposed to be a public service, you're technically a public servant, and you need to portray that character when you're out and about. And if you're not doing that, then you should be fired or maybe even arrested.
Oh, well, I don't know about arrested because obviously he's just doing model outfits. I mean, the thing is, there seems to have been no
sued, maybe not arrested.
Yeah, there seems to be no producer control. That's the issue. And Bad Wolf, as you know, has how many executive producers? Is there nobody slightly in charge of the marketing of this?
Nobody dares say no to him, do they? That's
exactly. John Yulden here. I'm at the point where I want a large company to acquire Doctor Who. Now, John Yulden's family is a BBC family, so I know that's a big deal for him to say that. The BBC cannot be trusted anymore. They are ideology captured, not confident of streamers, but they are the best choice.
Well, you have to understand the BBC. Sorry, I'll say this. Not sure.
Yeah.
BBC is not the same BBC that produced Blackadder, 40 Towers, the two Ronnies. Was that ITV?
Absolutely correct.
Morecambe and Wise. Okay, it's not the same. All that has been gone. There's been a slow march through the institution of the BBC, and this is where we are at. It's become so corporatized that it has become nothing more than a money-making machine that kowtows to the trend of the day. And that's because you've allowed these people who come in, who put their politics ahead of their impartiality, which is what the BBC used to be proud full of. And rightly so, but now it's gone. It's not the same. It's been
and legally obliged to be because it's a public service.
But now it's been overrun by activists, and it needs a purge. The only way the BBC can survive is if it has a purge, and if it has a
I think
renewed license. Let's put it that way. But
I think the easiest thing that would sort all the BBC out, and Doctor Who for that matter, is if they had to fight for an audience and fight for the funds.
Go commercial.
Well, to a degree, and I've heard there's a hybrid version.
I do agree.
Yeah, because that's where RTD could not be indulgent. Bad Wolf could not be indulgent. That they've got some money from Disney for 2 years, so they can do what they want. Suddenly, they'd have to go, hold on, what do the audience want, and do we know who the audience are? They'd have to start thinking in a different way. I think the way, as we're all saying, RTD seems to have delivered Doctor Who. It was something for him, his hobby horse, and it wasn't thinking of who is out there and who are the actual captive audience who are actually sat there waiting for TV. A lot of the people I think he was trying to reach or talk to are the people who don't watch terrestrial TV.
They're on TikTok.
Yeah, he wasn't. And the people who do watch TV don't want this.
No, they're older generally. And as Andy said in that, email or whatever it was to the BBC, it's predominantly people who are over 40 who... Not all, but the vast majority have children. Some have grandchildren. And like Doctor Who's always survived in the past for all those decades was because it was passed down. You cut that completely off, and then you try to engineer a new audience because it's all about engineering, this modern audience. But it doesn't happen organically like that. And as for the BBC being corporate, yes, it is, and it needs to become commercial. And already, if you think about it, it already is, because BBC Studios is corporate. The Disney and people like that they do business with, a contract, are corporate. They're not corporate necessarily, but they are, businesses, and it's commercial business. So the BBC has already sold out most of its public stuff to private companies.
So, Jack, were you coming in then?
Yeah, I'm sorry about this. Just had some bad news on the phone. I'm sorry about all the bother. So, yeah, just to add to what Lee said about the whole engineering the audience, I think it's half worked, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is RTD's original run was where my generation came in. And when it was announced that Tennant and Tate were coming back, I was very excited. And even with Gatwa and all the crap that came out of his mouth, I was going to give the 60th anniversaries a go. Hell yeah, because, I just thought if maybe there was a chance that I could relive some of that childhood magic. And this guy spat in our faces just as much as he did the older Doctor Who fans, because I'm sorry, we did not get what we grew up with. And what Lee said earlier about, the RTD almost trying to deliberately piss off the older fans, I don't just think it was that. I think he was trying to piss off the fans that came in his original era.
You are the older fans too now.
Well, yeah, because that's how old I am now. But, it's like he tried to piss off the fans who he knew weren't aligning with his crap.
Sorry, Jack, I was just going to ask you a supplementary. Do you think I'm trying to go the other way as well. We all want to see Doctor Who. Look, I know we may all have 4 different visions and the thread the same of what we think would make brilliant Doctor Who, and we want it back to that. I'm just wondering, though, whether that's one of the problems, that we're in denial of the fact that we'll never get back to that. It's just going to be either have to kind of do a deal with the devil, which is you'll get a different version of Doctor Who. It'll be called Doctor Who and it may not be what you like. Or you let it be cancelled.
I think there are a lot of people like that. I think for me, I mean, it's always that kind of balance, like, is it just ego talking? But as a fan, I think we all want to create art. We all have our own ideas of what we think Doctor Who should be. And I also think that can be a good thing, and I think it can be a bad thing as well. But, I had the fortune to grow up with both New Who and Classic Who. So I've got a pretty good idea of what I think Doctor Who should be. And I think Classic Who is definitely where it's at. But I don't think every single thing that has come out of New Who was awful. It's just most of it was, and it just didn't go anywhere. So I think if I were to bring it back, I would want to take Doctor Who in a very different direction than it's been in both of its eras. But I would definitely be getting most of my inspiration and paying a lot more homage to the original series than I would anything that Russell T Davies has done.
So I was going to ask you another supplementary. I mean, I'm being a good teacher. No, but is this right? Okay. When I was talking to my media insider, they were saying, look, you've got to be clear that the BBC don't watch Doctor Who. They don't like Doctor Who. They are irritated by it. So when you're making a pitch, like you're saying, you know which way you'd take Doctor Who in the future, which version's that? So for example, are you saying you in a pretend pitch you would say, right, here's some Hinchcliffe tapes, this is Doctor Who? Would you go back to maybe late 60s? Would you go back to early 70s? Would you go to the Graham William years? Would you do the late McCoy years? Where would you go? Because they're all different Doctor Who's.
Well, that's the thing. It's all different. And I think every fan has a personal preference. For me, because I like a lot of other sci-fi, I think the best thing to do would be to have a and I don't mean this in like a fan pleaser, because I think John Nathan Turner showed how that wasn't such a good idea, to start pandering to elitist fans who think they know everything. And I'm talking about both sides, because I think a lot of people in this fandom are like this. You know, it's like my way's the only way, and to hell with anyone who disagrees. But it's and both sides. I don't just mean, you know, it's people are like that. It's why I'm getting particularly fed up of talking about it, because it's just, you know, I've got ideas, but if they don't align with what that specific group who think they know all the answers thinks, then I don't get a voice. But what I would do personally is I would pay homage to multiple eras of Classic Who, because I think what's so nice about Classic Who is that regardless of which era it is, each era has ups and downs. You cannot say that the Pertwee era is 10 out of 10 perfect, because it isn't. You can't say that the Philip Hinchcliffe era is 10 out of 10 perfect, because it isn't. But you can't also say that the JNT era has nothing good in it. So I think, you know, what's nice about it is you can love any of those eras and pay homage to so many things. But I think with New Who, it's just this continuous downward spiral. And I think, you know, to not see that, you just have to be, like you said earlier, Brendan, just, you know, wearing what? Sorry, you worded it like wearing rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah.
You know, like that. I think you just have to be like, oh, you know, Doctor Who's all about change, yes, but not all change is good. But I think the difference between Classic Who and New Who is despite all of Classic Who's change, you know, it never destroyed anything that came before it.
Exactly.
Whereas New Who, that's all it has done for about 10 years.
And also, I would say that, you know, when we get told, oh, you just don't like change, it was like, well, excuse me, we grew up watching Classic Who. We watched it change many, many times over the years. You know, I mean, yes, it has changed. I've said this so many times and so sick of saying, I'll say it again. Why not? It does change, but it always seems to change with purpose. There's still a running thread from season to season. You know, it overlapped quite nicely, but New Who seems to sort of break, didn't it?
You see, I would say, Lee, I was listening to what Jack was saying, and I agree. Well, one thing I think we fans on here will say this: nobody owns Doctor Who, and that's what RTD didn't fail to execute that one, because he was a custodian for a few years. End of. I think he thought he had proprietary control of it. So no Doctor Who fan owns Doctor Who. So I don't like it when it gets on X and it gets tasty and all the rest of it, because I think it's out of order. Nobody owns it. We all have an opinion. That's all.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, though, sorry, Jack, I was on something you said was, I know you were saying like almost a homage to different parts of Doctor Who in the past. I actually think the only way Doctor Who can truly survive is to go forward and actually try. I actually really do think it's got to be disciplined, and you've got to avoid every fan bit of service that's out there. we've got to stop this now. I think we either have to think, is this Doctor Who brand strong enough to just go forward without all the blooming mentions and references and this and that and that? Baggage. If you go into a second marriage, you don't bring the baggage of the first.
Absolutely. But I think what is important though is that you keep it with what it was, and I think Classic Who provides you with so many wonderful things that you don't have to go, hey, remember this, hey, remember that, but you can add to it and even take it in new and exciting directions with proper creativity. But these new Who writers just seem incapable of that. I mean, most of their best ideas have been other people's ideas that they've either repurposed or copied. Whereas with me, I think I showed you this, Brendan. I've got some artwork for Sutek. I've got a whole idea for a storyline with him, but I don't want to compromise or take away from anything that Pyramids of Mars did. But I don't want to make people think that, oh, well, they have to know everything that came before to watch it. I think the show can go in a new, interesting, fresh direction, but I think its inspiration has to come from what it originally was, not this weird kind of soap opera perverted version that's been going since 2005. And you know, that's weird to think that I came in during that time. But another thing is, yeah, you're right, none of us own Doctor Who, and if I ever was fortunate enough to take it on, I would be like, right, I've done my 5 years or so, and now it's time for it to move on to change and for something else. I don't own it. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be a custodian.
That's what Verity Lambert said.
Supposed to like chisel away the face and make it look like a different president.
And also, I would worry that if I did stay too long, I'd like, could I do it justice anymore? And I think RTD is just so obsessed with himself. He thinks he's the god of Doctor Who, and it's probably my generation's fault because we always looked at him that way.
Well, I think there's a mixture of things that have gone on here. I mean, I don't know what's in his head. I can't prove anything. What I can say is it's quite clear that those he's surrounded by and those who decide to surround him are all giving him that message. That is the problem.
And can I just to add as well to what you just said there, Brendan, these are Classic Who actors as well, which infuriates me, because they're all just sellouts looking for a paycheck. And I'm sorry, Doctor Who fans, but you need to understand that these people don't care about you. Who was the one who played Stephen from Hartnell? Peter, what was his name?
Peter Purvis.
That guy, right? And I'm just going to tell you my experience. You can disagree with me. You can do whatever. That guy told me to my face at a Comic-Con, I don't care about this. To me, it's just a job. And then this guy has the nerve to go on GB News and argue for a female doctor. Shut the F up. You are there for a paycheck.
Wow.
You don't care about the fans.
Well,
you don't care about the show. You admitted that to me, a 15-year-old. And these people think that they care. They are on those Blu-ray sets, not for you, but because in their sad old lives where they aren't getting attention anymore, someone is giving them money.
I will say, okay, that's your experience. I've obviously talked to Peter Purvis as well. And Peter Purvis is angry with the BBC for being so shoddy with losing a lot of the blooming episodes from that era. So that he sounds as though he cares there.
But if he's in it, then it's about him.
No. Listen, you know, everyone has a different anecdote, and I do want to give balance too as well. To be fair, Peter Purvis also has defended William Hartnell when I have seen panels who have laid into William Hartnell unfairly. I don't like. Oh no, they'll talk about the ists and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? A man of his
he's not alive to defend himself, so shut up.
Yeah. And I'm not, and I don't like that. It's bad form. Equally, he always will be the first Doctor, and I think there should be some due respect. Mm-hmm. And I've not heard anything, honestly, that he's done that's out of order, big time of the time. So Peter Purvis decided on the panel I watched, and this is in 2013 when it was a 60s panel. The other ones were basically criticizing. They were the later companions of Hartnell, and they were slagging him off. And he said no, that's not my experience. That's not how he was. And actually, we got on, and I thought that needed to be done. So I just want to balance it. And everything, therefore, he was saying, he sounded as though he really cared. And when I've seen him do Blue Peter and what was that motorbike program in the mornings we all watched in the 70s, and he used to commentate on it. I always thought Peter Purves seemed to be that passionate type, professional but passionate. I take what you're saying, Jack, but I'm just giving
sorry,
that other
but
viewpoint.
I'm not trying to slag him off, and in that way, I'm not trying to. If you are a fan of him, that's your right. But what I've just told you is the experience that I've had, and I just feel like that needs to be out there, because I think a lesson I've learned as I've grown up is, you know, we all love to think that when you meet Billy Piper and when you meet Catherine Tate, I had a wonderful experience with Catherine Tate, but I think they always say never meet your heroes, and I just think that was a pretty shit thing to do. That was a bit of a shit thing to say. It's like, you should be grateful that someone of my age even knows who you are. You know,
well, you could argue.
That's
I'm
a
not
good
going
point. Yeah, because it means that you've got a legacy and it's lasted.
I won't ambush the talk, but what I will, because it's about something else really. But the point is, I suppose where I'm going with this is, everybody has a different experience of what's going on. I have to say, to be truthful, and I've sat with Doctor Who actors in the past when they've done autographs and that, what he's probably said quite abruptly was probably the truth of them all, as you said, because the truth in another way is it is just a job, you know. So in a way, I think sometimes they're trying to advise us lot to just calm down, dear, because we are getting a bit too embodied in it, when actually it is if you just saw it as a TV show, you are closer to objectivity and closer to maybe getting to the solution as to how you get this Doctor Who brand back on track.
I think as well.
I do agree with that, but at the same time, if I saw this as just a TV show, I'd be gone.
But it is just a TV show, Jack. I mean, in that way, isn't it? It's my favorite TV show. I'm a fan of it. I'm not a watcher. I'm not a viewer. I'm a fan. But I do know it's a TV show, and
but I think it's a bit irresponsible, especially, you know, as Jack was saying, he was 15 years old. Now you'll meet someone who's supposed to be older and wiser, and maybe dropping that kind of thing. Maybe he had a bad day. I don't know. I wasn't there, but to kind of drop that on someone young and impressionable, that you know, it's just a job. But a 15-year-old is not going to understand that, oh, that's just a job. You know, this guy did an acting role in Doctor Who for like a year back in 1966 or 65 or whatever.
I wonder if he says the same thing about Blue Peter.
Yeah.
Well, no, Craig Dunlop has said is it Craig Dunlop, or is it, sorry, Robert Payne? I've got it here. I've seen quotes from Mr. Purvis that he regretted doing Blue Peter as it harmed his acting career, because this does happen, doesn't it? You're seen more as a presenter than you are an actor. I'm sure Janet Ellis will have things to say about stuff like that as well. I mean, so, you know, that's Peter Purvis. That's one example. But I've had on the screen here, while we're passionate Doctor Who fans, the Graham Williams years with Douglas Adams, where I know me and Lee have got things to say about this. If I'm talking about mishaps and misdirections and misstyles in Doctor Who, look, the audio recordings I started during this season 17, and I love the Dudley Simpson touches in City of Death, in Destiny of the Daleks, and in Creature from the Pit. And I have a soft spot for Creature from the Pit. However, there were other elements as well where I just thought it was too high camp, too student humor. This shot really kills me. I'll show you it. It's this one. If you remember, there was this shot, the Doctor says the TARDIS is bust or whatever. You get all these stupid cartoon sound effects. And I just thought, I can't deal with this. And remember, how old was I then? So it's around 78. So I was 10. I was 10 and I thought, this is below me. I didn't like it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I have watched this era with rose-tinted glasses, and you know, you do rewatch, and I've had conversations with Jack about this before, and I think, for me, I think the peak was right at the beginning with, you know, Horror Fan Rock. I can watch that on a loop. I think it's fantastic. But that seemed like a Philip Hinchcliffe kind of era feel to it, and it kind of led you into this garden path where you thought, oh, there's more of that, and no. I love it. I still love it. You know, I will forgive it a number of things because obviously for me, the humor from Tom Baker is peak, and I think because he was more relaxed and comfortable with his mate Douglas Adams sort of writing or rewriting these scripts and bouncing those ideas off, so he felt a certain element of freedom, plus he had this kind of free song going on with Lala Ward. So I think there was an element of this kind of lighter tone, which we saw.
Lee,
but it was.
If I ask you supplementary,
yeah,
and I'm spinning in my head on all this as well because I'm a bit critical of this era because I preferred the era just before, but I know why it happened. Of course, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thanks for that. But the when we're talking about the humor. And people say, oh, there's always been humor in Doctor Who and whatever. So, on this era, tell me a couple of touches where you think it went too far and touches where you thought it worked. So, for example, I remember in The Creature from the Pit, episode 2, we think he's fallen down into the pit, but he's halfway down and he's got his how to do a Mount Everest book out.
Yeah.
You know, there's bits like that. I suppose we're saying that one, that's okay. Where do you think it works and where do you think it went too far in this era?
I think his one-line quips are great. Even when he did the fourth wall break in the oh god, my brain's not working. In the Sontaran one. Jesus, what's that matter with me?
What the
Even the sonic screwdriver will get me out of this.
Yes, yeah, that's the one. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I know that.
I think that kind of fourth wall break was very touch and go. But for me, I was like, well, he's talking to himself, so of course he would look to camera. But I think in this scene particularly that you had on the last picture, yeah. Bless him.
Graham Crowden.
Yeah, Graham. Yeah, I loved him in Waiting for God, but in this, geez.
And Peculiar Practice.
Yeah. He was so high camp. It was just toe curling, wasn't it? Really.
You're doomed. Doomed.
Naimon. I want the Naimon. As you know, dear me. Just have your medicine.
For me, Pirate Planet was really great stuff. I loved that story. I loved the Douglas Adams things, and I loved Tom's performance in that. So you have the high camp, but it's kind of balanced out when you had that really ferocious biting back from
I wonder,
Doctor, you know, when he goes, "What's it for?" You know, like that real power to it. And I love that. That's a nice balance.
I wonder if the reason why the Graham Williams era was the way it was, I think they explained it. So you had Mary Whitehouse going Save the Children. And then you also had Star Wars, and basically America had the money. So Doctor Who had an option. They can keep trying to be this take itself seriously, super sci-fi goth horror thing with terrible effects, or they can lean more into the comedy and make it sort of like it's so bad it's good. And I often think that maybe that's what they were trying to do because they knew they could never live up to things like Star Wars. So they thought, you know, why don't we just go all in the humor? It'll keep Mary Whitehouse happy. It'll keep the audience enjoying it as more of a silly show. And while I think that was definitely a good idea for the time, I also think it's what began the sort of downward trend of you can't take Doctor Who seriously. And I do think it started all the way back with this era.
K9 was introduced at this point because of Star Wars, wasn't it? So there's definitely that tonal shift. And I think Star Wars is definitely...
Well, you saw it with Deadly Assassin, the beginning with the scroll. And you know... I mean, and fine, that's, you know, you're trying to do... And that kind of works. You had the great voiceover of Tom Baker. When you think of the Star Trek original series, and I just want to do a parallel here.
Box brain.
because I don't think many people in many countries, media executive-wise, take science fiction seriously. So what happens is the science fiction can't be science fiction. So in the original Star Trek series, you had to have romance. Captain Kirk with Joan Collins. You had to have the kissy scene. with Doctor Who, as Jack was saying, we have to kind of then lean into the humor, because we can't just do sci-fi. We have to do something else. And I think this is the problem. It's just not dealt with as it should be.
Yeah, I think the problem is when you trade off too much, you're sort of, you start that wobble, don't you? And it sort of goes off kilter, and it's very hard to sort of pull it back because you've lost that kind of control and that professional sort of ability to say no, or to rein Tom in, or to rein Douglas Adams in, which was practically impossible because he delivered the scripts like 5 minutes before broadcast, you know. So it's difficult. And I think you had that very unsettled period of time, especially with Douglas Adams not being on call as he might have been, maybe. So I think they're flying by the seat of the pants, really. Season 17 starts off quite strong, doesn't it? It's got a really good opening,
Yeah.
and it sort of trundles off the cliff towards the end somewhat.
Yeah.
And you know, some might even argue, and I know Jack would argue, thank God Sharda went missing, you know, it wasn't finished.
Well,
Yes, I was, yeah.
So John Yulden, thank you very much, and I know you're helping us here. If you aren't subscribed and are enjoying this great panel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future shows. Thanks for that, John. And just to remind everybody, there are ways of contacting us. You can see there, censorsphere@gmail.com or at Censorsphere, or we have our Doctor Who Fan Debate Facebook page. So, you know, you've got different ways you can contact us. And you know, they're all out there. And yeah, I was talking to somebody today who is trying to come on, so it does happen. So let's have a look. So thank you to John for that. And I think because we've got Jack here, and it was a good one, and we have been talking about RTD, I'll just show this one more time because it's very I think it sets the scene for us.
Oh no.
I hear a new doctor you have, Russell. Or should I call you the Fitzroy Pumboy? Terence Dix. Bloody hell, are they still letting you in here? Surprised? Your conservatism blinds you, Terence. Now you'll experience the full power of the queer side, man. You will not stop me. Shooty Gatwa will become more popular than Tom Baker.
Now, did you spot my little addition in that, everybody? Did you see the Easter egg? No, I'll show you it.
What we're looking at.
Here we go. So we've got this. We've got Jack's great impressions. We get all this, and then suddenly, you'll see. Has anyone spotted it? You will see under the bar the little hoopet, a shooty hoopet, who's helping RTD eliminate Terence Dix. You'll see him. Here we go.
You will not stop me. Shooty Gatwa will become more popular than Tom Baker.
I wondered what that was.
There you go. He has his little fur, his lovely little fur. he got it from a gay club on Spyrodon. It was a gay, yeah. It's very because there were a few furs on Spyrodon, weren't there? And obviously there was a gay nightclub there.
I'm sorry, but a planet where you can't see each other is going to make clubbing really hard.
I don't know. It might make it fun.
No, sorry, Jack. You might think it might be. You can get away with murder. Murder. So.
I think we should talk about the JNT era, because I think that especially because I know Jack will want to talk about the trial of the Time Lord and Eric Saywood and such.
Well, if we head for Eric Saywood's JNT, I think that's quite a decent one, because it was part of there were a few missteps going on. I'm going to park this straight away and say, I did like Attack of the Cybermen. I did like Resurrection of the Daleks. I did like The Visitation. I did like this era. And I know some people think Eric Saywood made it go too kind of violent. I loved it. So I'm just saying that I loved it. Obviously, behind the scenes, there was something else going on, which is unfortunately our script editor and JNT. Well, they got on okay at the beginning, but then it really went off the rails. And of course, add to that, unfortunately, Robert Holmes died and his master plan for the trial of a Time Lord, and we get ourselves into a right mess. So take it up, Lee.
I'll let Jack talk about it because I
Okay, then.
think he's got a lot to say on it.
Right, so I agree. I do like Eric Saywood's darker take on Doctor Who, gives the program a bit more balls and shows that it can be, well, something to brag about to your friends. But ultimately, what happened was Robert Holmes tragically passed away. Eric Saywood was great friends with Robert Holmes, and he told John Nathan Turner that he did not want any of Robert Holmes's script altered in any way. JNT disagreed with this because he felt that some parts didn't quite fit the tone they were going for, and you've also got to keep in mind that the BBC were looking for excuses to get rid of this show. Unfortunately, some of the things in Robert Holmes's script were a bit ambitious, as they always are, and perhaps a bit too violent, and JNT didn't want to risk the BBC having ammunition. So he said things have to change. Eric Saywood said, if you change anything, I will withdraw the script and I will prevent you from using any of it. So that is exactly what he did. He not only quit the show, but he also basically got a sort of case where JNT couldn't use any of the script. So that was the entire final part of Trial of a Time Lord gone. With nothing to do and a very short space of time to get it finished, he hired Pip and Jane Baker, as they'd proven in previous seasons to be very good at putting a script together at the last minute. And that's why the Trial of a Time Lord finale feels very rushed and underwhelming. And the truth is, what Eric Saywood did next was truly unforgivable, in my opinion. Not only walking out on a show where the corporation was looking for an excuse to get rid of, but then going on a talk show and slagging off not just JNT, but the entire production team, was not just giving the BBC ammunition, it was handing them a detonator. So the fact that the Sylvester McCoy era even happened is frankly a miracle. And many fans will continue on to this day like the production team just got shit, having completely no idea of what was going on behind the scenes. But then these are the same idiots who proclaim that New Who is the best thing ever, so you really shouldn't be surprised.
You could say, Jack, that when you were relaying what happened there, you could say that's in. We had the same behind the scenes problems happening with Rish World and the Reality War, where basically suddenly the actor says, I'm leaving. And suddenly the grand finale with Susan had to be butchered and changed. And the last 20-25 minutes of a fairly mundane finale became even more drab because nothing happened. And all we did is talk about Poppy and who has adoption procedures with Poppy. So it's interesting. There's a parallel in a way, you know. I know there's not as much acrimony, but it's the same problem. Last minute changes had to be made. I'll throw it a different way. Right. Okay. That's what happened.
Before we move on, though, I just want to credit the YouTube channel Cody W1 because he does a great channel where he reviews all of the classic Doctor Who seasons, and it's thanks to him that I know all this, and I just found it, super fascinating that this sort of, this dark cloud over the 80s era, especially Collins' era, when I thought season 22 was actually really good. I do have some problems with some of the decisions that JNT made, but when I hear people actually making comparisons between him and any of the Fitzroy taverns, like, well, at least they're not as bad as JNT, I just have to, just facepalm, because it's just, you guys are so ignorant. You don't understand anything that poor man was going through.
The thing with JNT was he was very passionate about the show. He was a very good ambassador, I think, for the show, and I think he was very, very focused, maybe a bit too much on the fandom, because a lot of fan service was put in. So there is a similarity there in that respect. But, even though he did want to move on, he knew that if he did, that would be it for Doctor Who. They wouldn't get another person in.
But I think something that's very important is to say, like JNT was pandering to the fans because he thought that's what was best for the show. Let's all remember a certain ginger glasses someone who was sat in that that group of Doctor Who elites with his annoying, irritating little punchable voice going on about how everything could have been done so much better. And then look what he churned out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
in my opinion, I just wish that JNT, God love him, had the confidence to sort of go the way he wanted to go and not feel pressured to give in to keep constantly giving in to.
I think the other thing to be said about the Trial of a Time Lord debacle, though, and I'm not challenging anything you've said because I'd heard that too, but the issue is that it was a big mistake to do it in the first place. The Doctor Who season has been on an 18-month hiatus. It needs to come back all guns blazing.
Rumpole of the Bailey in space. That's what they want.
I would have thought it would be best to just re-establish the program in the way that everybody would recognize it. And all of a sudden, what we got is this kind of bloated 14-episode serial. This is where RTD was right in 2005, not to do it as episodic, because if you've missed 2 parts in those days, you didn't have iPlayer, and obviously you go, I don't get this. And to do a 14-parter was mad, absolutely mad. And I think this and to the clever word pun, the Trial of a Time Lord, Jack, I take what you're saying. We didn't need Eric Sawer to do what he did when the show is on its last legs, but it didn't need a clever ass trick called the Trial of a Time Lord as a narrative.
No, I know it's clunky, it's bad, but I just think JNT gets far too much hate, and I just personally think it's unfair. I mean, for all the man's flaws, at least he loved the show so much that he didn't want it to die. But it's like these people seem hell-bent on killing it.
I don't know who these people are. I mean, if they're just trolls and keyboard warriors, I don't give them much airplay. I mean, I saw JNT in action regarding Lonleat 83, and I saw how passionate he was regarding the program and how he was really trying to spin everything and really just present it. And, JNT gave us the 5 faces of Doctor Who. I mean, and isn't this fascinating? We are now falling into wilderness years again. We're hitting another pause in Doctor Who. And JNT was so bothered about the gap between Logopolis and Castrovalva that he said we need to plonk something in the schedules, and we'll do a 5 faces of Doctor Who to remind them that the Doctor does regenerate and all the rest of it. He was that bothered. Nobody seems to be talking now that there's another gap in the schedules. Maybe we need to show some old stories of old Doctors to show everybody in the British consciousness.
Well, they wouldn't do that because they would have record bloody ratings, wouldn't they? People would tune in their droves, and it would just highlight the flaw of the ratings of the last couple of years.
Yeah, BBC4 will do it in the end. You know they will. I mean, Eden's doing it, aren't they? Trial of a Time Lord story, says Tomboy Chick, worked fine as stories. It was the trial scenes that ruined it. I mean, how many close-ups, cliffhangers of Colin's face did we have?
How many different names for the Valiard did he come up with?
Scrapyard, Boatyard, yeah. And then, that was... We love humour in Doctor Who, we told. I'm getting sick of hearing that, I do. Can I just throw in, since we're around the Colin Baker era... It has to go down as one of the worst missteps. The twin dilemma, not the story. I actually really enjoyed the story. My problem was, well, maybe not the twins. The twins. Bye bye. They were a cheap version of Nicholas Lyndhurst, weren't they? My problem was the scene in the TARDIS. Not him getting a bit stroppy. I want my Doctor to be more aloof. I want him to be more unpredictable. I really do think the Doctor
psychotic, not so much.
Yeah,
craggy knob.
that was it. It's when it goes too far, and it's a shame because that launched Colin Baker's era in the wrong place for him as well. And of course, I have to give a shout out to his costume, and it is a costume which wasn't chosen by him and was, I mean, really, talk about the changing costumes of Shooty.
But it is a silhouette. It is a silhouette similar
It is
to, the Fifth Doctor and the latter Fourth Doctor. It's got that coat shape to it, the frock coat look and the tie and all that. For me, I don't mind it. I love the coat. I actually do love the coat. It's the trousers and the rest of it I don't like. The coat would have worked fine if it had been balanced out with black trousers or something.
Yeah. Anyway, that was
it's this penchant for poetry that really got up my nose. It was a bit. Come on, you're a bit too pompous,
Well, I saw Craig. I think it was Craig Dunlop earlier going, "What are you doing saying Dulles Ditchwater Dominators?"
It is
well,
boring.
It wasn't me, but I have to say, and I'll only do the name drop one more, but it was relevant. I think the Dominators, all 5 episodes, were shown at Longleat 83 in the big marquee, and I remember my dad took me there for just the one day, the first day. And I could see that, I'd never seen them. I was just a kid. And I was like, oh God, Charlton. But 5 episodes in a marquee, I'd have lost my day. And of course, I'm so glad I didn't go in that bloody marquee because I'd have been watching that. I'm not saying it's the worst Doctor Who ever, but can you imagine if I said to you all, I was at Longleat 83, sat in a marquee all day in the kind of damp smell of a tent, watching Dominators.
Yeah, I do like the Quarks. I've got one on my shelf, but it again, it's the 5 It's a weird one, 5 episodes, isn't it? When they do that, it's a bit like the later on with the Sylvester run with 3 episodes. It just felt like you're being either cheated in one or sort of over egging it a bit with the other. I mean, it's not quite a 6-parter. 5-parters are generally quite. I think they work better later on than in the 60s, if that makes sense. I'm just thinking because the pacing. I think because us being so modern, everything's so much faster, and certainly now for the more current generation, everything's even faster. So looking back at the 60s, it can drag. I think particularly more in Troughton's era than William Hartnell's, funnily enough.
I think the trouble was that in Troughton's era, they just kept recycling the same story formula over and over again. But one thing that did keep me watching the Dominators was that gorgeous actress.
Not the men wearing curtains.
No.
Shower curtains.
I'm more attracted to a Quark, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Oh, you can't say that.
I love the Quarks. I do love.
Yeah, the Quarks are lovely, I have to say. And Craig Dunlop, yes, I've remembered you correctly. Yes, I remember you were saying, what, the Dominators? The Quarks. Come on, Brendan. I'm listing what AI said, and you know how AI is always right.
But how can you function in those shoulder pads, though? Like there's big collar, like the big shoulder things that they've got. I mean, you can't be taken seriously if you're going to dominate anybody. People are going to look at that and think. I've heard of power dressing, like the big Dynasty shoulder pads that they used to wear. That's just taking it a bit too far, isn't it? Really.
Well, to jump from the sublime to the ridiculous. I mean, Doctor Who has always had a great relationship, you could argue, with Blue Peter, whether it's, different periods when we saw the Whomobile for the first time or whatever, or the 5 Doctors you saw clip. But we also got the Absorbulov, and I have to say this has to be down as a misdirection. Also, by the way, if you accept that the Absorbulov itself is okay, Brendan, shut up. It was the issue with the paving stone girlfriend.
Oh. Yeah, that was. Yeah. So sorry I've been away for so long. I had some kind of allergy attack. I've been sneezing my head off. But I'm back.
So that's what I mean by missteps, misdirections. RTD1. Okay, a little kid has designed the Absorbulov. We'll go with it for one episode. Peter Kay will give his best, but I'm not too sure whether his conclusion to that story showed that he actually really understood what Doctor Who is at all, because that was outrageously out of order.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he understood what he was writing, and the casting was weird as well. It was the young guy who was famous for being in Hustle at the time.
Yeah.
Which is a show that I really did enjoy.
Yeah. Oh no, that was the cast wasn't the problem, and I kind of liked, although they repeated it again, didn't it? Didn't Chibnall with Power of the Doctor with all the companions all meeting, and didn't RTD also do this? I'm gonna get the wrong story. It was when all the old biddies were on the bus. I think it was the end of time, and of course they're all looking for the Doctor and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? He's done this a few times now. David Harding in Toronto, that story was so good and fun up until the Absorber Love arrives, and then the story jumps off a cliff, never to recover. Jared Cooper, that's very nice of you. Love and Monsters, an amazing story that everyone hates for one line of dialogue. Go on, Jared. Since you've also paid us some money as well, give us a supplementary and tell us why you really like this. I was interested in the concept of the fans, in a way. The Absorber Love, I couldn't get my head around.
It's
I don't know.
CBeebies on acid. It really is.
I think the
Yeah,
trouble is
The Absorber Love was awful. It was a terrible concept. I mean, yes, okay, it was written by a child, but it comes across like it was written by a child. And then they go and put this pervy stuff into it at the end. And
well,
you know, you're putting pervy stuff into
Well,
children.
but
Like,
it's not. But they don't.
can we just arrest you already?
But this is what I mean. It's
You
not.
want to arrest
pervy.
everyone now.
Yeah, man, I want to arrest everyone.
But
Well, I
James, you
mean-
know, hold on, James, isn't this always the point that, and for every Doctor Who fan who says to me, "We need humor in Doctor Who," right? Well, be careful what you wish for, because RTD will call that humor. I say it was misplaced. Maybe let's do Doctor Who sci-fi with no humor, just a one-liner now and again,
But didn't Moffat actually write that episode?
no, it
No,
was
it was
RTD.
RTD.
It was RTD.
You can tell it was
No,
RTD.
no, it was Chibnall. Chibnall wrote this episode.
Well, guys, I mean, Classic Who isn't entirely innocent. I mean, Tom did toss off the creature from the pit, but I think with
You gave it a
RTD,
blowy.
That's you. That is you. That no, I was there. I was watching it, and I thought, no, he's talking to it. And
are you sure? Are you
I'm
absolutely sure?
communicator.
I'm
Well, I
pretty
think-
sure IC did not write Absorber.
I
Love.
think Lady Rtd'S was onto it. I think she was. That's why she was screaming. She was like, "No, there's no way I can deal with that." Hold on. So, thank you, Jared. I'll go with that.
Nice. This is nice. Just remember, I'm your granddad. Yeah, Susan. Wait, what's going on here? Put your hand off that. What's it? Love all your work on Doctor Who, RTD. I've always got my hanky out. How many more seasons of Doctor Who have you written? You never know. I may have written as many as 5.
Oh, okay, you're right. It was.
Feels
RTD.
different this time. Oh, regenerating! You unearthly child.
There you go.
Yeah, you were right. It was ITD.
Yeah, you can tell because it was crap.
Fair point. Fair point.
It's not about, Doctor Who not having humor, but there's humor and then there's that type of humor. And, for a man who swore blind he wasn't trying to put a gay agenda in the show, then goes and does something like that. And then we're getting what we're getting today.
I know, but I do think, just like saying, if you say as a rule, as a Doctor Who fan, humor's allowed in Doctor Who, then it's open season.
Yeah, but there's humor, with the odd line here or the odd look there or whatever, a bit of slapstick, that's fine to diffuse the situation or to confuse the enemy or whatever. Like Tom did that, he would disarm people by acting a fool, and then they think he's an idiot, and then he clearly undoes their evil plans. But then there's sort of Marvel dad humor, that seems to be prevalent today, and it's just like you say, the high camp element of the Williams era is nothing on this, nothing at all. It's tame in comparison. It's practically reserved, and that's I think it doesn't help with the fact that what I see is the key difference between classic Who and modern Who, and I do get a little bit of stick for this, but I'll stand by it, is the universe is so confused in the new Who version. It's so all over the place, and it's all Technicolor and bells and whistles, but it doesn't, it's all magical. That's my main problem, is it always seems to be sort of very magical, or, you know, the wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, get out of jail free card. You know, classic Who, for all its many flaws, it was grounded in some sort of earthy sort of reality to it, you know, that's science. And that is the key. You know, in science fiction, I kind of think knowing at least a little bit of science goes a long way in telling the story,
title, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That's why I'm not giving. I'm a stickler on this one myself, by thinking, look, it's a 62-year-old show, and the more any fan says, no, we need a bit of canon, we need a bit of this, right? Well, you've asked for it, you're gonna get it. Why can't we just have a brand new TV show that goes forward in all its beliefs and leave it at that? But no, we have to have a bit of canon, bit of folklore, bit of you know, humor, a bit of that. No, we don't. No, we don't.
If they had the confidence, this is why I think RTD and all that sort of Fitzroy crap, I think they've lost their nerve. And the reason why I think they lost their nerve is because they felt that this show's longevity wouldn't match the original run. And I think that they tried to throw everything at it to keep it going in the hope that it would stick. But I think what they've done is they've tried to make the show absolutely whatever the current trendy thing is and latch it on to that, and to throw in all these lore things because they want to be as relevant or as meaningful as the original run. You know, they want their lore to supersede the lore of the original.
Well,
they want their footprint to be the largest, and it's not worked.
Well, let me just say thank you to Farsight, because I did forget Farsight did once do a super chat before and I missed it, and I apologize. I'll always remember that. Sorry about that. And the Absorber Love, Adipose and Slitheen, everything Doctor Who shouldn't be, says Farsight. And I know what you're getting at. I know what you mean. Let's give you a bit more of what Doctor Who should be. Okay, so let's have a look. So, Jack, are you off on your way now?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I just,
Yeah,
as I
I
said,
think
I had some stuff come up. I'm sorry, I've been dipping out and in.
No, I totally understand. Thanks for your contributions, and, you know, all the best. I'll talk to you later, but all the best, and thanks for sticking around, because I didn't think you know, there's other issues going on. I understand. So all the best, Jack. Okay.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, guys.
Well done, Jack.
Bye.
Take care, man.
Yeah, so a few little comments coming along here. David Harding, Doctor Who should be able to be pretty much anything it needs to be. It can do humor, horror, sci-fi, political. I mean, yeah, Hinchcliffe era, just about, we could say in a nutshell. I just think, though, I agree with you, David. Obviously, I do. The trouble is, I feel as though I feel as though our program, now it's 62 years old and not 10, needs more rules to stop some people like RTD in the future going too wild. So, yeah, remember, how old was Doctor Who when Hinchcliffe was in charge of it? It wasn't old; it was a teenager. Now it's a pensioner, and I think it has to be treated in a different way, unless you want it to turn into a mess. And so,
late for that.
well, no, I think you can. It's got the best formula in the world. All it needs, is it to be taken seriously by everybody who writes for it and produces it, and that's it.
But it's not only that. They need to have a strong sense of its identity. They need a Bible. They need to stick to it. They need to know what it is. It shouldn't be the next Bridgerton. It shouldn't be the next Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It shouldn't be the next whatever the current show is at the moment. It needs to stand on its own merits. It is Doctor Who. It is the original, long-running science fiction TV show of all time. And you need to remember that, and you need to give it the grace and the respect it deserves, and not try and treat it as if it's this thing that can morph into whatever the current day thing is to stay relevant. It doesn't need to stay relevant. It's timeless.
But isn't this the issue, Lee? I've had so much thought about this over time. We were fans, as in we became fans when the show was, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And it was a different beast entirely, in a different era too. Now it's 62 years old, mostly gone, and been on screen most of the time. We had that one Wilderness Years era and a couple of other little gaps. But it's been on TV a long time, much longer than Star Trek and anything else. So yes, it's the longest running sci-fi show in the world history. And I think we may have to see things in a different way. I wonder whether the future of Doctor Who is just lots of separate seasons, maybe with different producers and different styles. In other words, forget this linear approach, forget this continuation approach. Get a production team in who want to go dark. Let's just say that. And they do it for 8 episodes, and it might be stretched out over a year. And then you get another production team taking it in a different direction. In other words, they're all isolated little seasons. I just think this Doctor Who limping on, and it does a little kind of nudge, wink, wink to last week's show. No, stop all that.
It's not limping on, though, is it?
I have to disagree. And I'll tell you why. I think it's because we've just become so used to seeing Doctor Who so mismanaged and maltreated that we just think, well, that's all there is to it, and it's just run out of steam. No, it hasn't. The people running it have run out of steam. They ran out of steam from a very long time ago. Now, if tomorrow there was suddenly a whole new raft of Sherlock Holmes stories uncovered, people would love to see that made. They would go fall over themselves. Oh my God, there's this whole other bunch of stories yet to be told from Sherlock Holmes. Oh yes. Or anything else you can think of. It's how it's managed, it's how it's produced, it's how seriously it's taken, and how much investment, not just money, but investment in intellect and passion into this show that will signify it as something fresh or new, because it can be fresh. It's built into the show, and that's been lacking from the current lot. They just don't seem to understand. It doesn't mean necessarily fresh. It just means, we're just going to do it in my own egotistical style, and it's not fresh in that way because it's the same bloody people.
I'm going to be brutal here. When was honestly the last time Doctor Who was really good? Because I know we'll talk about New Who, and I know we'll talk about RTD and the Fitzroy Tavern and everything, but I think, come on, you've got to go back to also in the 80s. You've got to go, and that's why when I mentioned this to you last week, Lee, I was saying, do you know what? When did Doctor Who start to go wrong? And in my, I haven't seen it since the beginning when it was on TV, but I started to feel as a kid, Saturday night, sacrilege, everybody, I used to go out and play football. I stopped watching Doctor Who every week. I did. As in, if the lads wanted a football match or something, I'd go out. If it was raining, I'd be watching Doctor Who. So in other words, I started to see bits and bobs of Doctor Who in the later 70s years because it had lost me. And it was partly the humour and the silliness. And as a 10-year-old, I wanted it to be more serious. So I'm sorry, when I'm 57, I'm not going to change my tune, am I? Now, and I just think, to be brutal, Doctor Who has been limping along for quite a long while. Now and again, we get a nice, decent story, although I'd be stretching it now. I think a lot of people would say the last Capaldi one, maybe. And maybe a bit in season 4 with Donna Noble and David Tennant.
I think season 5 was brilliant.
For me, I would say Remembrance of the Daleks. Really.
Well, I mean that's honest of you as well, because I have to say, if Doctor Who fans really, really, really looked at when was it last good, we might be stretching way back. In other words, aren't we seeing the obvious? It's not RTD's fault only. It's not Chibnall's fault only. Maybe it's just outrun itself, because are there any more? And look, I'm just asking rhetorical questions here. Are there any more stories out there? Has it run out of steam?
Oh, there's always stories. The universe is infinite, but like
So
the
it's
problem
stupidity.
is instead of telling stories, they are trying to tell us what to think. Like the idea is they're supposed to teach us to think. They're not supposed to tell us what to think.
Exactly.
If they went back to teaching us to think, asking questions rather than pushing whatever agenda it is this week, then it would be a great show again.
Well, I think that's right. And I think when New Who started, I watched out of interest. I didn't even know it was back until very late. And I was like, oh, and I kind of watched it and I thought, what's this? and I watched it and think, oh, well, maybe it'll get better. That's how I initially started watching it, and it
Fair.
didn't get better. It kind of just kept creeping along and then got worse. Then that's just me, okay. But for the faults that I see in New Who, I think that where it struggles is it's trying too hard to be relevant. It doesn't need to. It should rely on its format of being a timeless thing. You've got anywhere through time and space you can go to.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're not really tied down. And if you start focusing, I know for budgetary reasons, a lot of it was confined to Earth, but I think they could have really stretched it a bit more and they would have done okay, but they didn't. And I think they tried to play it too safe. They were chasing their audience. They were engaging to the point of excess, really, but the substance for me just wasn't really materializing. I think it needs to punch up higher above people's heads a little bit more.
But this is what I mean. When we know we had a Horns of Nymon story and then the Shada one, which we seem to be grateful wasn't shown, it's because the season was too long for the amount of good stories they seemed to source. As Jess is saying here, which I think is a kickback on me asking a rhetorical question, stories out there, oh my god, only a hack would ask that or even think that. Well, it's called debate, isn't it? I'm actually saying, I'm asking that, and there's a good reason, Jess, isn't there? When was the last good story in Doctor Who? Please, pray tell me. Because
the 11th Doctor, I already told you.
but
the 11th hour. Sorry, that's the name of the episode.
So what you're saying is the last good Doctor Who story was about 15 years ago.
Yes, I am.
I would say Wild Enough in Time was probably, the last time I thought, oh, this is actually good. But unfortunately, like with most Moffat second parters, it fell off a cliff. That's the problem. No continuity.
So I'm asking questions. Is continuity the problem? Or should we just have separate, isolated seasons of a proper Doctor Who formula and you go gangbusters on it? But I just wonder if production companies and writing teams need to see an arc. They need to see a development. We're going to do this with this Doctor. He gets to there and then ends there. And if they see it like that, rather than, oh God, we've got to do another story to fill another week.
Have confidence in what Doctor Who is, not what you think the audience think it is or what you think it should. Just look at what the golden era of Doctor Who brought to TV. I'm not saying repeat that. I'm not saying go back to Unit or go back to a Man in a Scarf. I'm just saying you know what Doctor Who is. You also know what it isn't.
But you
can't tell me you don't know the difference.
But look at what Jack said. Jack said about the Troughton stories repeating the same formula every week. It was bailed out because one week it was Ice Rory is introduced, another week it was Cybermen, and then it was Yeti. It was not a bad season, but you don't need to be able to do that once. But the formula was already getting tired.
Yeah, but I mean, when I say you know what the identity of the show is, it doesn't have to stay within a specific type of formula, but you can move it forward. You just need to know who the Doctor is. You need to know what the TARDIS is. You need to know what the rules are in that universe and stick to it.
Yeah.
And, don't keep, like you say, don't keep delving back into the lore and going backwards all the time and then telling us it's all progressive and change when it isn't. You just keep rehashing old ideas but making them worse. Instead of that, like, just start off with a Doctor. You don't know what number he is, whatever.
Yep.
You just go off. He's got a companion suddenly, and he's off in the TARDIS having adventures. It's nothing more to it than that. Okay, it's really very simple. But they try and make it more complicated, look more clever than that they really are.
I think there's a boredom with the brand from the writers, as in, the jokes are about, running down a corridor. That's and I think that in
Nothing
some
wrong
ways,
with the corridor.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Planet of the Daleks, give me a corridor anytime. That's where it creeps you out. It gives you space for atmosphere. So, Jess, I know what you're saying. You know that I'm trying to get a pitch together to do a direct appeal to the BBC, and if you want to join us on that one, because the point is, I do think now, to make the show have a future,
the enemy of Doctor Who is the lack of imagination.
It needs a writing team who will actually really nail down some of the framework that the Doctor Who in future has to operate in, because I think if it's a 62-year-old show, you cannot just keep limping on and saying, that was let's go to that shelf there and get that story down. No, I think we need to go, bloody hell, how many monsters and villains have we got in this Whoniverse?
Well, it's 20 years of the same people running it. Of course, at least in Classic Who, they actually had real change. They had different producers running every few years. But now it's the same bloody people for the last 20 years.
But I think it's because the BBC's. But I think it's because the BBC's different as well.
Yeah,
because
as well.
I think even media executives, my understanding is they're getting sloppier and lazier, and it's all formula. Whereas I suppose 60s, 70s BBC, you had proper departments and a lot of, there was some good stuff where, their costume department, as you know, was phenomenal. And a Doctor Who historical could just go walkies into the costume department and have a nice cheap 4 episodes of Mask and Mandragora if you wanted to.
Well, Doctor Who suffers from 2 main things currently: lack of intelligence, and I would say lack of imagination, because everything is so foibles, human issues, current day fixations, and it can't see beyond that. And you got the whole of time and space. And what do they focus on? Current day issues constantly.
Yeah, I would say the same thing as you, but I use different words. Like it's repetition.
It's unimaginative. Like I say, you need to write slightly above the heads of your audience in order for them to go, what does that mean? Or what's that?
Yeah.
That's just
it's like,
really pull them up.
I know it's not the best example because it didn't go down too well when he actually did it, but one of my favorite quotes about Doctor Who is from Douglas Adams. He said, perfect Doctor Who is simple enough for adults to understand, and complicated enough for children to be still interested.
Exactly.
You need to, and I've always used that Genesis of the Daleks example that, I was 6 or something, and I was the language, it was just the lexis of the script was challenging me, and I loved it, absolutely loved it, because I knew a Dalek would come down the corridor eventually. So basically, you've got to it's quite Shakespearean. It's just basically two-handers, Davros and Nyder talking about politics. Really.
If you have the Doctor in Classic Who using words that as a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old or whatever, you're going, I don't know what that means, but you're interested because it sounds intelligent, and you're invested because this guy knows what he's talking. He's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, and it makes you pick up a book and it makes you become a smarter kid and therefore a smarter adult.
And then you look at these current Doctors, I'm sorry.
Which is what the BBC was supposed to do.
Most of them come across as gurning fools.
What they've missed is that it's the art of a really good script. You've got the pitch in different places. You're not aiming at anyone. You're just aiming at good TV. but it's good science fiction TV, and you've not forgotten that. I think the issue with when you've talked about the last 20 years and why it's gone wrong for so long is because they're not science fiction writers.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, I mean, even the science fiction writers back in the day, they were writing Crossroads. They could do soaps, but they could still do something because they used to go down the pub and they'd talk with their science mates and they go, "Well, that's a great idea for a story." And they'd have advisors, actual science advisors, telling them this is the the theory on this and blah blah blah, and they use that.
So Jess, with your writing background, there are so many brilliant, talented, diverse, and intuitive quality writers out there that would wipe the floor with that lot. Jess, in how many streams have I been saying, if you walked into Waterstones and went into the science fiction section and you just looked at how many writers are listed there, really, and their books, who are living, you could actually talk to and phone up. How is it that Rtd picked Anaya Elms and Juno Dawson and Kate Herron? Yeah, we know why. But yeah.
You agree with me.
Because I totally agree with you, Jess, that they are brilliant writers. Of course there will be. The human race has only got bigger. There must be loads of talent out there. But of course,
won't get a look in. Won't get a look in.
It's become a closed shop. And Spent, good to see you. I've always believed stories that reek of atmosphere linger longer in your memory. Ren Cheyenne, Fan Rock, The Invasion, Season 13. Oh, you're getting excited. Season 13, and I don't blame you, mate.
Oh, wait.
Yes, I know, and I'm going to try and get the Scarrison on with Neil Cole as he comes on soon. Lads, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jack, first of all, and I hope things sort out there. I'll check with you later. James, great to have you on. You've stopped sneezing, so there you go. You're okay now.
Yeah, I'm all right.
And Lee, always a pleasure. Can never get words in edgeways. You try your best.
No, I'm just... You're not going to stand a chance. I'm sorry. You should know
so everybody, thank you. And if you have just discovered us tonight, give us a subscription, please. Thank you very much. And we might be on again.
More importantly, share the video.
Yeah. Slug report tomorrow. That's definite. I'll be slugging it out, making that 5-minute video. Enjoy. Bye for now.
Bye.